Okay, I finally had a good take and then my mom called me, so we're gonna try this again. I'm aware I look slightly crazy, but it just keeps getting hotter in here, so we're just, it's fine, it's fine. Hey everyone, Marissa here and welcome back to another video. Today I'm hopping in with my very first video of 2024 to talk you through everything that I've read this year so far. I got through it without messing up. That's a good sign. I do only have 6 books to talk you through, but before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, I did just want to have like a little bit of a touch base. Ooh, corporate word. I do just want to chat a little bit about like life growing up and where I'm taking this channel going forward for this year at least. I'm not making huge future plans. So you might have noticed that last year I made a bit of a I'm back style video and then promptly disappeared for months and months again. So sorry about that, but I think I have finally reached a point in both adulthood and my life online and as a reader where I am pretty good at cluing in when I'm doing things because I genuinely want to be doing them, and when I'm doing them in a more performative nature because I feel like I should or I have to, or it's something that I used to do in the past, and so why change now? In terms of making videos this year, I did try to draft a like what I'll be reading in 2024 style video back in January, but then it never got off the ground. I never actually filmed anything. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, this is the first time all year I have felt a really strong impulse to make a video. Now, what does that mean for the future of the channel? No, I'm not going to be closing things out. I do, for some reason, have a little bit of a roadblock when it comes to potentially completely closing the door on the channel, but I think I'm at the point where I'm okay that I just like pop in every few months. Like maybe you won't see me for a year and then I'm like, hey, hi, I read things. When it comes to other like hobby areas of my life this year, I have really been enjoying getting to delve back into those hobbies and rediscover creativity and rediscover things that I used to love doing a ton in private, and then deciding what, if anything, that I do want to share with the outside world. I think I have been online for so long. I started this channel, back in 2014, and then I was a blogger before that, and I, have always posted on Instagram, and like, I think I just shared so much for so long that I was like, okay, well, you should continue to share at that same level. And the reality is nobody's requiring me to do that, and I'm not an influencer. This is never going to be my full-time job. It's not even a side hustle, there was no reason that I should be putting pressure on myself to make any kind of content whatsoever. So I know last year I had a few lofty goals for myself. I did get kicked out of the partner program, and for a while I was like, ooh, that means you got to get back on that grind. You gotta, how you were able to like boost your subscribers once upon a time, just consistent content all the time. And realistically, I'm just not there anymore. It's just not gonna happen. I was recently tagged in, I think it's like a booktube oldies tag by Sajid, or Books Are My Social Life. So I'm going to watch his video, and then that will probably be the next video that you guys see from me. So if you do get 2 videos in a row, don't feel spoiled. That probably won't happen a lot. But at this point in time, I'm really enjoying things in private and then deciding if I want to share them and how much of that I want to share. I guess this has really just turned into a bit of a mid-year check-in, but something I've been really working on this year is covering my basics in a very efficient way. And by covering my basics, I mean like make sure you're eating well, make sure you're sleeping, exercising, seeing your friends, taking care of your mentals, that sort of thing. I've been really trying to either automate or just be efficient with those things so that I can create more time for myself to be creative, to explore my hobbies. I have gotten into air dry clay. I am writing again, which I have not written in probably like 3 to 4 years, and I am writing a ton right now, and it's just for me at this point in time. I'm just having fun rediscovering things in the privacy of my own time where I can mess up or not finish something, or just let something fall to the side for like a few weeks because maybe I decided kind of done with writing for this week, but I would like to play my video games this week instead. And there's no public shame around deciding that I want to reprioritize. So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but basically this is my very long-winded way of saying that I will not be stopping posting videos, but it may be months and months in between videos, and I'm okay with that. And if you still like my videos and you would still like to, you know, peek in every few months, hopefully you're okay with that as well. But anyways, let's get into the books because I am back on my Japanese literature nonsense. And this feels very, very classic Little Spider 9, if I'm being honest. What order do we go in? Well, I guess we'll just go as I wrote these down. Like I said at the beginning, I've only read 6 books this year, so it's not a ton. And a lot of it's got pictures, a lot of it's manga, but I'm having so much fun reading again that I don't even care about the numbers. I am just, I'm excited that I'm actively making time to read. So we'll take that, right? Progress over perfection. I also feel like this is going to be a relatively boring video because I don't have props I can hold up because all of this stuff is digital. I have somehow accidentally become a Kindle girly this year. Not entirely sure how that happened, and I feel bad talking about that in front of all of my books. But yeah, everything that I've mentioned here is digital, so I'll just try and do cover inserts for you guys, so you actually have something besides my sweaty face to look at. Okay, so the thing I have read the absolute most this year is the manga series Mushishi by Yuki Urushibara. This is published by Kodansha Comics and is translated by William Flanagan. I have read volumes 3, 4, 5, and 6 this year, and I'm currently in the middle of volume 7. And it is just pure perfection and like the perfect thing for somebody who's kind of reading in fits and spurts, not in like one elongated reading session, if that makes sense. I believe I've talked about the Mushishi anime series here on the channel before because it is one of my all-time favorite anime series. It is set in a vaguely ambiguous historical Japan, and it follows one man named Ginkgo who walks around helping people deal with these kind of mysterious creatures called mushi. Now, some people can see them, some people cannot. They are little like bug-like phantoms, essentially, that are the essence of life incarnate and affect people and climates and societies in different ways. And it is beautiful and haunting and mysterious, and it's like fantasy folklore and episodic, and it's everything I could want in a series. Now, it's obviously based on this manga series, which I am reading right now. And what I will say is that if you're somebody who does not like repetition and you've just watched the anime series, you might want to space out reading the manga a little because it's literally pretty much verbatim the same stories, if that makes sense. The anime is a very faithful adaptation to the manga series. Now, I don't really care. I will reread and rewatch the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. So I have really been enjoying this first read through the manga series. And I do have to say that for a series that I'm reading on Kindle, I am astonished at how beautiful the artwork is, even on like some kind of a digital screen. It's got a real watercolor-esque quality to it, and it's just stunning. So if you are, like I said, into kind of slow, haunting, episodic folklore fantasy or historical Japan, I think this is something you should check out. I've been really enjoying it, and unfortunately I only have 2 volumes left in the series. I am in, like I said, reading volume 7 right now, and then 8, 9, 10 are like one big volume. So once I've done that, I'm done, and there's no more Mushishi anime either, so I'm just gonna have to continuously reread and rewatch. But it's kind of been my late night read because my sleep schedule sucks. So when I wake up at 4 in the morning and I need to read something quickly on my Kindle to help me fall back asleep, this has kind of been my go-to. And I have to say, rediscovering manga as an adult has been so refreshing. I don't know why or at what point I convinced myself that I was a literary fiction booktuber and I could only read literary or nonfiction, but really allowing myself to spend money on and read manga again has just been, it's been so enjoyable. And it's honestly been the thing that has kept me reading this year and like just kept me in the reading mood. So that is the manga that I've been reading this year. And then I did read one novel, which was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Now, I, believe it or not, had never read The Handmaid's Tale before, and I borrowed this from my library, and this was probably the first book in at least 3 years that I have read cover to cover in a single sitting. It was that, I don't want to say good because it was very creepy, but it was gripping, and I genuinely could not put it down. I don't know if I still need to give a summary of The Handmaid's Tale given the entertainment saturation of the show. It is basically like an alternate universe in which, or an alternate history, I guess you could say, of this country in which society has broken down. Certain women can have babies, others cannot, others are just wives, and it's creepy and dark and twisted, and yeah, I don't know, I guess enjoyed is the right word. I really enjoyed it. I really could not put it down. That was a good read. That basically was like a Saturday. I'm like, nope, nobody talked to me, I'm reading Margaret Atwood. Then I did listen to one nonfiction audiobook, which has approximately the world's longest title, so bear with me as I read this from my iPad. I listened to Tales from the San Francisco 49ers Sideline, a collection of the greatest 49ers stories ever, told by Roger Craig and Matt Mayoko. I did read Steve Young's autobiography last year and quite enjoyed it. So I thought this might be along the same lines, and for the most part, I would say yes. If you like sports, if you like football in particular, and if you are a 49ers fan, you might really enjoy the reminiscing on different characters in the organization, different games, different training situations and schemes and things like that. What I will say is that I think this was probably for somebody who was more enmeshed in 49ers history, or somebody who's a little bit of an older fan because they will have lived through more of these games and characters, if that makes any sense. But I basically went for this book because Matt Mayoko is a journalist for the NBC Bay Area, and he has a really fantastic 49ers podcast. So I was like, oh, it's Matt Mayoko, I'll just go ahead and give it a listen. And while I didn't dislike it, this was probably the least favorite of the books that I have read so far this year. Then for what I'm currently reading, I already mentioned Mushishi Volume 7. I'm trying to drag it out as long as possible because I really am enjoying experiencing the manga for the very first time. Then the other thing that I'm currently reading is Japanese Ghost Stories by Lafcadio Hearn, which is translated by Eleanor Matsuda. This is a Penguin audio short story collection, essentially, that is completely fascinating. If you've not heard of Lafcadio Hearn, he's a very interesting figure if you are interested in Japanese literature, folklore, history, etc. He was a Greek-Irish writer who had a very interesting life. He lived in the 1800s through early 1900s and did a lot of his writing in like the late 1800s from what I understand. He started out as a crime journalist here in the United States. I believe he worked in Chicago, and then through various events ended up living in Japan, falling in love with the culture, and became a Japanese citizen and one of the people who probably introduced the West for probably the very first time to Japanese fantasy and folklore. So the book, Japanese Ghost Stories, is essentially a collection of ghost stories that he gathered from people that he met in his travels across Japan. He compiled it all together, footnoted it, gave some cultural references and explanations for the Western reader, and it's actually so good. It's a little long, so if you are looking for a longer short story collection and you just want to sit and I've been listening to it while I do puzzles as my non-screen time hobby, and it has completely got me what's gonna happen. I will say some of the stories are quite grim, and not necessarily in a fantastical way, but in a wow, humanity sucks, or wow, war sucks, or wow, famine sucks kind of way. But if you are into creepy stories and are at all fascinated with Japanese folklore or culture, I would highly, highly recommend this. I have not finished it yet. I'm about I think I have an hour-ish left in the audiobook, but it is fantastic. Again, I would actually say if you are a fan of Mushishi, the anime or the manga, you would really, really enjoy this book. And then the very last thing that I'm currently in the middle of is How Do You Live by Genzaburo Yoshino, which is translated by Bruno Novasky. This I started back in, I think December, and I originally started reading it because I wanted to do a review of the latest Hayao Miyazaki film, The Boy and the Heron, and this is a book that heavily influenced Miyazaki in the pre-production process and is referenced in the film, so I thought it would be instructive to my review, essentially, to read this book before I filmed the review. Unfortunately, it's now been so long since I saw the film that I'm now waiting for the film to come out on HBO Max so that I can refresh before I film the review. So I've screwed myself a little bit here, but this is a very interesting book as well. It's both a novel and it is like a philosophical exploration, I guess, of young adulthood, of growing up, of discovering how the world works. Essentially, we're following a young boy who is like middle school age. We follow him in pre-World War II Japan, learning with his friends, going to school, you know, navigating social relationships and interactions with people of different classes, that sort of thing. And then the other half of the chapters are him writing to his uncle, I'm sorry, writing to him in a journal of sorts about different historical figures, different philosophers, different ways of thinking, and social philosophies, things like that. I genuinely was a little concerned going into it that I would find the more philosophical chapters to be like just kind of there and maybe a bit of a slog to get through, but I actually really enjoy them, and I think the author did a really great job of kind of connecting both like the real-time stories of the young boy's life to the philosophy that his uncle is talking him through, and how merging them together kind of like makes you an adult, or at least puts you on the road to growing up and learning things for yourself. So it's been an interesting read so far, but I've kind of stalled because now I'm like, do I wait until the film comes up on HBO Max to finish the book, or do I just finish the book and hang out and wait for the film? Basically, enjoying it so far, definitely not finished. That will also be a video that is coming at some point. I would love to basically, by the time that Miyazaki decides he is done, like completely done, I would like to have a review up on every single one of his films. So that video will be coming up at some point, a review of The Boy and the Heron. That took me a really long time to film because I had to keep pausing for cars and aggressive birds and things like that. But thank you so very much for watching this video. If you have read anything in particular this year that's really grabbed you, let me know. And also, if you have read anything specifically associated with Japanese translation or Japanese culture, please drop a recommendation down below. I have a decent number of things on my shelf that I know I need to get to, but I'm also aware that there has been a sudden explosion in like specifically Japanese and Korean author translations in the last several years that I am really, really far behind on. So if you have any that fall within that realm that you would like to recommend to me to kind of like boost up my list, that would be really, really greatly appreciated. But otherwise, that is all I have for today's video. So how do I wrap these? I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you so very much for clicking on the video and watching, and hopefully I will see you in some of my other random videos at random points throughout the year. All right, I guess that calls it a wrap. Bye.